Coming into the view, fast and heavy. We need to be able to make sure you understand how pathetically weak that engine is, you fucking absolute dummies. Let me give you one hell of a nice hit for the first national energy. What is this guy? Corporation, right? Apparently, some dude acquired their patent for a new engine for the automotive. Oh, I'm sorry, aeronautical, not aeronautical. Air, whatever. I don't give a shit. Nothing means anything to me. Point is, I got upset because I was like, okay, so he was allowed to file for a patent. Meanwhile, my fucking family will like say, oh, if you're so good, why don't you file for a patent? And I'm like, because it costs money. And people don't really give a shit. Anyways, so coming in really quick. This is a shit drawing. Flip this somehow. And your fucking like dumbass viewfinder. Anyways, doesn't tell you anything. That's right. It's not going to unless I explain it to you because you're stupid. You can't get at something immediately at a glance because you're dumb and you need to explain. This is a rotating piston assembly. This is a rotating piston assembly. That's the air intake. That's that little circle. That's your valve. It's a circular valve. It never moves. It stays still. Those are those arms that are connected to the piston heads. Those are called connecting rods. They're hollow because we can make tubes. They're double hollow because we can put a tube within a tube. Air intakes get centripetally compressed along with your fuel. As you can tell, the center manages to compress it. The outsides are where the air adds itself from your centrifugal air compression. As it heads towards the center, it compresses. And what do you know? It seals because one side and the other side both help to create a mating seal. That's right, mating seals. It's amazing. They go bark bark, boom. Compression ignition, spark ignition are both possible. I don't need anything but a hole where I need the air to allow it to go through. That is correct. Now, as the exhaust travels down, it then affects one of the piston heads to spin it and turn it at the wrist pin assembly. That opens it up for the exhaust. It pushes it. It goes into the seal / exhaust manifold area. As it goes through there, it then happens to be, oh, that's right, I can't go through the exhaust port anymore. So I travel alongside the curvature of the engine housing. As that does that, it pushes again against the piston head. A little bit of it is added to that, adding its heat exhaust, and then air on the outsides are then added, then compressed, and then combusted again. That is correct. It is the simplest version of an engine that is rotating that someone can make. It is better in all aspects because it recirculates and uses that recirculating exhaust for the engine's performance, while heating it up and allowing for better and better compression methods. Their engine is garbage, mine is amazing. As far as a concept goes. And it's, as you can tell, I wrote, not to scale, obviously not drawn well, as well, I know, it sucks. Deal with it. Deal with it. It's garbage. Just deal with it. Okay, and also, the microphone's over here. That's why I sounded like I was so far away. Let's do this one more time. Fucking damn it. I'm angry. I'm just genuinely angry that they got it acquired as a patent, and like so many people basically discount me on all my designs. You have no idea how many people do. It pisses me off. and my family and people like online, well, how come nobody else thought about it? Well, sometimes people aren't fucking very creative and they don't know that much anymore about things. Like, that's a problem that I see consistently. Obviously, one side was too big. They're supposed to be the same matching, amount, and it's supposed to kind of look like an infinity. Anyways, the point is you're supposed to be able to put 12 of them in a circle and then exhaust that little ring, exhaust manifold area in the center that it travels through, which that one's a pretty simple. You have the seal here and then 2 on the outside, and that'll allow it to move respectively to the exhaust manifold area. And then a sliding valve that opens or closes on both sides, so that way you get a bigger intake or smaller amount of intake respectively for your air that's being compressed and intaked and shoved into the engine housing area. And then same thing with the center. Now, the reason why you want 12 is because then both sides are now combustion alongside of the center. So you have 3 combustion areas with the tops being intakes, and then that does its whole, I exhausted, and then I intaked, and then I I added to more air, and the roughly still somewhat there exhaust and more fuel, combustion, ignition, and then you do it again on this side, so both halves become your 4-stroke process, I suppose. But it's a single stroke technically, although no strokes are occurring, so there's really no real loss to the momentum that has been gained, which means it's its own flywheel. So in all actuality, it is more efficient than this motherfucker's stupid, idiotic. It's not. It's probably amazing. I'm just angry. It's not him. It's me. I'm jaded as fuck right now. And jealous. That's what that is. All right, but like still, it's a fucking what is it called? One pump and done design, which is a single piston stroke combustion ignition process. Which it's like, I don't even need a stroke, bitch. You can slightly rub against me in a circular motion. And it'll work. I'm not sure that'll sell. I'm not sure that will. We probably shouldn't use that as the logo or the tagline or anything. Not to mention they can be stacked in series, so like they are always going. That's why it's like, if you put 12 in them, like that's a circle, but it's meant to be something that is altogether rotatively adding to axles that spin like a prop on one side and counter-rotatingly adding that prop. And as the circle part of that exhaust manifold can open up and allow for more of that exhaust as the RPMs increase, to allow for that exhaust to escape and still gain advantages for increased engine speed RPM, which is incredibly useful for the aerospace sector. Not to mention, eventually, at that point, I can create some sort of a Tesla valve-esque design, force in more air, compress it a little bit, and because it's hot, and because that heat is actually adding compression, and I only need a little bit more air, which I already have some air from that, I can add in more fuel, like an afterburner / rocket chamber engine design, and produce more power, more thrust, more jet engine-like activity, because that will also drag a suctional effect, creating an easier reduction in the turning requirement of torque to turn the props, and thus be able to gain higher degrees of compression and airflow, getting more thrust, and you see the effect. Pretty simplistic design. It's been done not at all. As far as I'm aware, no one's ever designed it and made it work. People have rotating engines, but not really like that. Certainly not using a double tube system for your intake and fuel injection. Or the sealing using the piston head itself, almost at that point as if it is a opposed piston design. Same thing with the engine manifold valve to allow for greater degrees of exhaust to happen. And intake is very well managed. The faster the RPM goes, the higher the amount of centrifugal compressive force is applied. Thus, it will maintain itself as it goes up in engine RPM. Same thing with fuel flow as well, because fuel pressures go up too. Depending on the nozzle size, that also allows for a direct injection compression ignition with even ethanol and maybe even acetylene. Personally preferable acetylene because of the faster burn velocity that is achieved in the higher degree of heat, which will be advantageous for the aeronautical industry as an actual fuel source, since it gains a measurable degree of exhaust velocity. And that, of course, equates to a higher degree of efficiency for thrust if you're not utilizing just only fan shroud propulsion methods. All right. I just figured I'd say that because I fucking am kind of pissed off about his single piston engine design that doesn't even take into account utilizing exhaust efficiently for increased power potential, or allowing for it to cool and use that actual heat as a benefit to compression ignition heat detonation styles of velocity for engine performance potential. I just find it to not be as efficient or as powerful as mine. Not to mention, I still have the ability to burn or really highly compress the exhaust together with air to perform a more beneficial extraction of energy, but also a cleaning effect to the nitric oxide possible emissions. With a compression detonation style of explosive decompression of nitric oxide emissions. With clean burning acetylene here, it would be extremely potentially beneficial. People will believe that acetylene is just an explosive, and it's not once engine RPMs go to the limit you need them to be for RPM potential, which this has to get to that point. And it needs to burn incredibly fast to be able to push the speeds that you're looking for. And so faster burning fuels are better in a engine like this than a slower burning but greater amount of fuel style like ethanols. Which you have to also take into account, not to mention heat for intake is taken from the cold as all get out high altitude air that is being shoved through what is essentially a cone with a Tesla valve style design at the rear to just shove in more acetylene and allow for a faster velocity of gases to escape, giving you thrust. And it can be even achieved at a micros. Is that a booger? God damn it, I thought I picked that. Microjet engine style by utilizing a carbon steel sheet that is then drilled with enough slots and then added Integra style, where they print around these fan blades with ceramics. And then same thing is not necessary for your intake at the top. It is only for your exhaust area. As a result of this, you gain the ability to turn a jet engine / turboprop into a rocket engine with escape velocity levels of exhaust potential. So there you go. Hey, Integra, if you ever see this, I hope you make it. Credit me. Same thing with others. Bye.